So I think when we discuss environmental initiatives, we focus too much on things like keeping, maintaining clean water systems and lush forests. And it's not to say that either of those are not important, but we forget about the animal side, that conservationism side. And conservationism is a part of environmentalism. We're not just taking care of water for us. We're not just keeping trees and forests healthy for us. It also affects the animals that live around us. And so with that, I'll be talking to you today about Zoo Idaho and one of the cooler programs that they have that I think is really interesting and you should seriously consider. Um, Zoo Idaho, their thing is they're trying to bridge that gap between environmentalism and conservationism through exposure and education. Their biggest market is children, and that's what a lot of this is going to be geared to is children. Their exhibits are comprised of animals native to Idaho, and we'll discuss that a little more later on. But the big thing I found when you look at their mission is they want to expose visitors to a lot of these animals that we saw a lot of in Yellowstone National Park. There's bison, there's bears, there's coyotes, red foxes. A lot of these animals you do still see in Yellowstone National Park, but not as much because of effects, from things like climate change, to an extent industrialization, but not as much given it's a national park. There's not that much activity like that going on. But they want to use the animals to tell the story of conservationism and environmentalism and how you can help with both of those to help restore their natural habitats, and you can see those populations flourish again. A lot of the animals that they house are previously injured or orphaned, and they wouldn't have survived in the wild. So it's a really cool opportunity. They can use animals that left to their own devices would not be here today, and instead they can help spread that message of conservationism. And they have probably a dozen different types of programs that are used to provide exposure and education to people, both locals who go to the zoo or people who are passing by and they want to come in and see the exhibits. And so today I'll be talking to you a little bit about their mission as well as one of their more unique programs designed to generate interest and involvement in conservationism. Before we get to the program, we'll talk a little bit about who Zoo Idaho is. And they're established in 1932. They're the Ross Park Zoo or the Pocatello Zoo, and then in 2012 they renamed themselves to Zoo Idaho, and it's very symbolic choice of a name because, like I mentioned earlier, all of the animals there are 89 different species of animals at the zoo, and every one of them can be found or is native to the state of Idaho. They spread beyond that as well, but they can all be found here in the States if you look in the right spots, which I think is really cool. It's 30 exhibits, 89 species. They're also home to, or they are also the home to a number of endangered species and protected species. One of the more popular endangered species we all are aware of is the cougar or the mountain lion, and then the golden eagle is one of the protected species that they have housed at Zoo Idaho. That's pretty popular. Like I said earlier, their big thing is using conservationism to improve environmentalism. And with that, we're going to talk a little bit about one of their cooler programs, and I'm going to really quickly go over some other opportunities that they have. They have about 7 events every year where there is free or reduced admissions, Mother's Day, Father's Day, Grandparents' Day, and some other days to help kind of get people into the doors, because they live off of donations and admissions. That's how the zoo is funded, and they do a pretty good job. They had 36,000 visitors last year. They're still able to improve what's going on at the zoo, so those donations are really helping out a lot. There's also a number of on and off-site programs where people who work at the zoo will go to schools or church groups or whatever form of community gathering, and they'll kind of talk to you about some of the animals that are there and a little bit about who the animals are and the background involving the species as a whole. And that's typically aimed at children, which, like I said, is going to be the bulk of what Zoo Idaho is doing. Is they're aiming towards the next generation, if you will. So with that, one of the more interesting programs I read about that they do that I would encourage you to take part in is the Adopt an Animal program. The Adopt an Animal program is exactly what it sounds like. You send a donation, and the donations range from $50 to $500. Or if you want to look at it a little more rationally, a little more than $4 a month at the low end. Not a big expense. And through that program, you become a quote unquote parent to a specific animal in the zoo. They're going to send you a certificate of adoption, an animal fact sheet for the species, a biography for the specific animal. You'll get a 5x7 photograph, a bumper sticker, some online recognition, and a plush toy. So a lot of cool things that come with that. And there's more perks if you increase your donation amount. If you do the $250 donation, you get a little more, $500, a little more. But it's a really cool program. It's designed to help. It helps with the care and the feeding. That money is specifically designated for that animal, and you could choose the animal, or they'll choose the animal. If I give $50 and it goes to the red fox, they can take that money, and that's going to help feed that red fox and keep it alive, and allow it to help tell the story of conservationism. And this is a great program, especially if you have children, because it teaches them a little bit about responsibility, very much in the same way as having a pet. So it's great. I'm a big fan of it, and I really do hope that more people are involved with it. So in closing, you kind of have a better idea of what Zoo Idaho is and what their mission is. And I would certainly hope that with this added information, you can do what you can to help Zoo Idaho expand their conservation and education efforts, through programs like Adopt an Animal.